We've been at this for almost a couple months now. We've had extensive discussion, debate, back and forth between the committee and the department, and consequently with the board, Fish and Wildlife Board. At our last meeting, there were 4 items that we objected to, and there was discussion between the department and the board, and our response, I guess I'll paraphrase a little bit here and say that the board declined to respond to our objections, and so I think that's where we're at this point in time. Okay, do committee members have any questions for the council?
I'll ask a quick question. I did not listen to or view or wasn't at the board meeting where our objections were discussed. And I'm wondering if there's any indication from board members or the board as a whole that there would be a further discussion about our objections and any possible resolution or compromise that you could see from the board.
I think it's unlikely. We are having a meeting tonight just to, review whatever happens today, and also to ask the board whether they want us to proceed with filing the rule.
That's right. At your November 16th meeting, you moved to approve the rule as it had been presented by the board, including the change on seeking landowner permission, which had not formally been a proposed modification, but had been expected to be a proposed modification. You moved to approve the rule with those proposed modifications, except as otherwise objected to, and then there were 4 objections. Those were to section 3.2, the definition of trapping, on the ground that it was contrary to the intent of the General Assembly, to add the word hunt to the definition. You objected to section 3.14B, a portion of the definition of public trail, on the ground that this portion of the definition is contrary to the intent of the General Assembly, to include all trails where not to include all trails where persons may reasonably be expected to recreate. Section 4.15 on the trapping setbacks with respect to traps in the water or under ice, and section 3.6 and 4.20 on the definition of control of dogs for purposes of taking coyote with the aid of dogs, that it was inconsistent with legislative intent. So the board had 14 days to respond. They did that. That's the November 30th letter that Representative Higley referenced. The board is now in a position where they can move forward and adopt the rule because they responded within the 14 days. However, LCAR is in a position to determine what should be done with those 4 outstanding objections. Options under the APA are to withdraw the objection, to modify the objection somehow. I think that's less likely given the fact that you split it into 4 objections, or to certify one or more of those objections. In order to certify the objection, it requires, just like the original objection itself, that there be a majority vote of LCAR, not of members present. So that's going to be 5 members of LCAR needing to vote to move to file the objection in certified form with the Secretary of State. If that happens on any of those objections, Representative Squirrel will send a letter to the Secretary of State noting the fact that the objections should be filed in certified form, and then that triggers a couple things. It shifts the burden of proof if there is ever litigation challenging the rule, and it requires that notification of that certified objection be on copies of the rule that are made available to the public. And that's both going to be the version that's made available by the board and the version that's made available by the Secretary of State in the official Code of Vermont rules. So,
Representative Baumgartner.
Chair, to get things started, I move that we file the objection to section 3.20, the definition of trapping, on the ground that is contrary to the intent of the General Assembly to add the word hunt to the definition.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Thank you. Motion passes.
I move that we file the objection to section 3.14B, a portion of the definition of public trail, on the ground that it's contrary to the intent of the General Assembly not to include all trails where persons may reasonably be expected to recreate, and we do so.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I move that we file and certified form the objection to portion 4.15, trapping setbacks, that accepts from the setback requirements traps set in the water or under ice on the ground it is contrary to the intent of the General Assembly to exempt traps set in the water or under ice from setback requirements.
We have a motion from Senator Bray. Discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion passes. Senator Bray.
Mr. Chair, I move that we file the objection to sections 3.6, definition of control of dogs, and 4.20, taking coyote with aid of dogs, on the ground that it's contrary to the intent of the General Assembly to allow the taking of coyote with aid of dogs unless there is a required means of controlling dogs that sufficiently minimizes the risk that dog pursuing coyote will enter onto land that is posted against hunting, enter onto land where pursuit of coyote with dogs is not authorized, harass or harm people or domestic animals, and cause other unintentional damages to people or property. I move that we certify this file this in certified form with the Secretary of State.
Have a motion from Senator Bray. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Thank you, committee. As Pledge Council indicated, we'll be sending a letter along to the department with this information. We also, there's a section in there about the moratorium too. Yeah, I think I just made passing reference to the moratorium issue, so I think maybe I'll expand on that a little bit. And I just want to read what is in the letter we put together. Members of LCAR voted to file the fourth objection in certified form of the opinion that the fourth objection being filed in certified form shifts the burden of proof to the Fish and Wildlife Department in any action for judicial review or for enforcement of the rule related to sections 3.6, 4.20, C3 VSA, 842 C2, and should be interpreted as evidence that the current moratorium on pursuing coyote with the aid of dogs is not lifted upon the effective date of the November 30th, 2023 rule, if adopted, because section 3.6 and 4.2 of the November 30th rule do not meet the minimum requirements of the rules required by sections 3 of Act 165, specifically sections 3B4, and therefore the triggering event for the repeal of moratorium in Act 165. Section 2B has not been met.